There are 16 grenades and a snowball, and Helldivers too. They can be used for damage, utility, and sometimes a mix of both. And this leads a person to ponder the question, which grenades are the best and which are the worst? I'll be answering that with a tier list going from S tier all the way down to Courage tier for all 3 factions. To save some time, here's a quick list of all the grenades that can destroy spawners, bug nests, fabricators, and illuminate dropships. My in-house artist made an infographic to show where all the grenades come from in the war bonds, and I paid a real artist to design some high-quality matte finish stickers for Wilbur's, Billy Bob's, and Meat Bob's. Links in description. Anyway, let's go ahead and start the video, and we'll begin with a safe word. Pineapple. It sends out a few shrapnel clusters, each dealing 300 damage with a light armor pen, and you get a total of 3 uses. You may be wondering, maybe the airburst shrapnel is good enough to offset that. It ain't, chief. This thing is F tier, Courage tier on every faction. Because there's just no reason to have it. It doesn't do enough horde clear, and that's the only real draw to it. And it also can't destroy some basic stuff that other grenades can, while also having such few carrying capacity. You can't break a Tesla tower, for instance, on the Illuminate or the Arc Spire. Compare Pineapple to your standard G6 frag. 5 uses, 500 damage, medium pin, and the rest of the stats are the same. You don't have the airburst quality, but that wasn't good to begin with, at least not right now. It just does everything that you'd want to do better. It's pretty good against the Illuminate, at least for the voteless and whatnot. Overseers, it can kill them in one throw, but those are a bit tough to land. It does quickly lose usefulness outside of those 2 enemies. I'll give it C tier for the squids. On automatons, I'm going B tier. It can one-shot devastators from a decent range, which a lot of grenades can't do at all, shockingly enough. Upon further investigation, the shrapnel is very RNG based, occasionally killing devastators in 1 grenade, but normally requiring 2. For Billy Bob's the Blicky, it's always 1 grenade in a pretty massive radius. And it can kill hulks from the front. Against the bugs, it's pretty good on Bowel Spewer and Nursing Spewer seeds. Just make sure it's beneath their belly before it explodes for a more consistent one tap. It's decent against hunters, warriors, hive guards if they're clumped up, but in general, they don't really do that unless you're on high ground just waiting. It is funny to one-shot Stalker with a timed throw. I'm gonna give it C tier for the bugs. Snowballs, an expendable grenade you can craft on any snow planet by standing still. It's a bit tricky though, because sometimes you stand still and it takes a while. Other times, it's dang near instant, allowing you to stun lock a Hulk, a Devastator, and it's fun in that sense. For the automatons, it stuns everything up to War Strider. But Factory Striders, no dice. Tanks, nah. So it's essentially going to be the pre-stun grenade, and there is no stagger, by the way, which is kind of cool. The stun itself does not last very long, though. And I think for automatons, I give it a B tier, considering it's just there. And it can be kind of fun. On bugs and Illuminate, D tier. They move so much, you can't really sit still and craft them in the first place, really. Smokey the Bear's worst nightmare. Incendiary impact. Immolating anything it hits in a pretty large radius and leaving behind a lingering damage over time effect of fire. None of the stats matter except for the incendiary weapon trait and the carry count, which is 4. This thing will wreck house on all the chaff units on every faction. On the squids, bullets die to a single tick of fire almost always. Overseers take 2 ticks, and past that, Meat Bobs require a number that I've never quite calculated. It's not worth going over, but still, fire does a decent bit of damage to them as well. It is going to be pretty much one of the best things to have for horde clear on the faction. I reckon it's A tier. On automatons, fire damage is more powerful than you think. It one-ticks Billy Bobs and can roast Devastators if they're anywhere in the middle-ish of the blast, just not on the very outskirts where it only hits them once. So they get slow roasted by flames, they die. The things it's not great on would be Rocket Striders. You can direct hit those dudes, they don't die at all to that direct explosion. Scout Striders can get hit by the explosion itself and it lights the pilot on fire. If not, I don't believe they get affected too much by walking in it themselves. It can kill hulks, but I don't know exactly how quickly. It happened once, didn't feel like testing it because relying on fire tick damage to kill enemies that large, you're really just wasting time at that point. And past that, not particularly fantastic on War Striders and so on and so forth. Which is really good against the chaff clear aspect. So for that, I'm going to give it B tier. In opposition with the bugs, it's pretty good. It one-ticks the majority of the chaff to be facing on lower difficulties. By lower, I mean 7, roughly. But past that, you will be facing Alpha Commanders at level 8. And those dudes take 3 ticks of fire, I'm fairly certain. They also tend to run away from you a lot. But if you're on level 7 difficulty, facing Hunters, Wilbur's, Pouncers, they're going to get smoked. And Hive Guards, which can be spammed at you sometimes, They tend to bunker down, they're taking damage, so they put themselves in the crock pot and set it to high. They will die. I'd say freaking solid against the bugs, considering it also lasts a while, and bug breaches, they pulse and they just spawn more waves, so they're just getting spawned into the oven. I'm gonna give it A tier. G10 Incendiary is very close to the previous grenade. You have a 2.9 second fuse time though, and 150 extra damage on the initial explosion, which doesn't do a whole lot from what I can tell. So it comes down to personal preference. If you like the extra damage and fuse time, you'd like this more. Me personally, I'm gonna say it's B tier for every faction though. Thermite, 2000 damage, anti-tank armor pin, and it can stick to enemies. It may miss the first time though, in which case second one's a guaranteed land. The game starts to feel bad for you. This is one of the single best items in the game against large enemies. Chargers, Hulks, Meat Bobs, the list goes on. On Battle Titans, it does require 2 to the forehead, which is very hard to land, so it's more of a finisher than it is a preferred method of killing them. On Factory Striders, go for the undercarriage. Land 2 on the same door, so middle section, split, you pick a side. 2 on that door, it will go down. Tanks, I'm telling you, man, everything essentially gets one-tapped. Meat Bobs require a Thermite and some change. You can stick a ruptured charger and have it burrow beneath the ground and get exploded like a graboid from Tremors. Its utility is also mental. On the bunker mission, you can break the main objective in 2 Thermites and take out fabricators in 1 Thermite requiring no precision, and even breaking the Illuminate dropships that still have shields on by hitting it essentially anywhere. That last one's a little inconsistent. I'd say probably 95% of the time it works though. It is the single best grenade for killing the biggest backed enemies of democracy. S tier on every faction. Urchin is like a Thermite. It can stick to targets and takes time to detonate. The difference is you're doing 0 damage and instead you're applying crowd control. This thing will trigger electrical pulses 4 times and those will apply stun buildup and stagger enemies. It can stagger and stun every chaff unit in a single pulse. On Hulks, Chargers, War Striders, and Harvesters, it can stagger in 1 pulse, but it takes 2 pulses to stun them. That means they have a chance to fire back at you in the meantime, depending on what you're facing at least. And on the elite enemies, Battle Titans, well actually just Battle Titans and Impalers I guess, it can stagger them, but it will not stun them. And for Impalers in particular, you cannot interrupt their tentacle attack. Once that's happening, you throw 1,000 Urchins, they do not care a single bit. It doesn't work at all on tanks, tank towers, factory striders, leviathans, and hive lords. The last 2 I'm guessing on, but I can't imagine it works on those guys and not tanks. There is a strange interaction. You can toss grenades through shields. This also applies to harvesters. When their shield's up though, they have a non-stick coating, making Urchin grenade never attach. Break the shield, all of a sudden the non-stick coating goes away. It turns into stainless steel, proper pan to buy. Considering you only get 4 Urchin grenades, and while they're being staggered, they're moving, making it more annoying to hit precise shots to kill them, and you're better off killing things as opposed to CCing them and wasting time killing them with different tools, I'm giving it C tier for Illuminate, D tier for automatons, and D tier for bugs. Throwing knife, 250 damage, medium armor pin, and it has a fairly quiet profile, allowing you to be a bit more stealthy. It is tossed as if you're a Girl Scout who is not cracked on Thin Mints though. It throws Wampus, it throws to the left of your reticle. I point that out because throwing knives are going to shine when you hit weak spots, which is tough to do if it's being thrown weirdly. And also, keep in mind, it doesn't throw very far, so you have to worry the armor increasing throwing distance, which I do believe also gives it a slightly faster projectile speed, making it easier to land. You get 20 throwing knives that once thrown cannot be collected. They're resupplied the same way everything else is, which is a bit of a missed opportunity. They can one-shot overseers to the face, and if you hit them in the body, they get staggered, keeping you alive in the close quarter situation against the overseers that have the body cam turned off and a beaten stick. On the flying overseers, the headshot's tough to land, but it looks phenomenal when you do. Voteless, one shot to the face, and to the body for the most part. And aside from that, it's not very useful. It takes 3 to destroy the Snitchbot 9000. I want to say it's D tier on the squids. On automatons, you can hit the legs on devastators and kill them in 2 throws, and the headshot will be a one tap, which is tough to do given the aforementioned inaccuracy of the weapon. Billy Bobs will only survive if you hit their arms, and even then, they may not. It can disarm a Factory Strider in, I believe, 4 throws to the chinny guns, and it can also kill them. And I believe 40 throwing knives may be a bit more. It's not very good on larger enemies. Now, if it got heavy penetration, I'm just saying it could be pretty fun against Hulks. Like, maybe? Eh? I mean, I think heavy pen and collecting knives would be so much freaking fun with a weapon. It doth get D tier. Using it on bugs reminded me, you can land the hilt and not the blade, dealing reduced damage and potentially no damage at all. The last part I'm not too sure on, but I've had cases where I hit a warrior in the face and they don't die. I've also had an instance where an impaler just didn't take damage from 2 throwing knives back to back. Either way, on bugs, it's not particularly great because to kill certain things, like a hunter, you have to land a headshot or a really good body shot, and they move around a lot, and throwing knives throw weird. Wilburs, they get smoked, but that's not particularly a feat of strength. Hive guards, 2 shots. Commanders are 2 shots as well. But I've had a lot of cases where the knife will phase through their face. And that's pretty much where the usefulness stops, unless you like the idea of staggering stalkers with throwing knives, in which case, that I'm pretty sure can happen. Anywho, I'm going to give these the Courage Tears tier. Smoke. Unlike the USB sticks that folks shuck on, it can actually save your life in the game. The way it works is it obstructs enemy vision, but just not all of them. For Illuminate, the Volus can see through it. Overseers, Harvesters, and Meat Bobs, I'm fairly certain can't. But there is a caveat. If the people that can see through it are near the folks that can't, then they all of a sudden can. I will say, during my tentative testing versus squids, they did not follow the rule to the T, and Overseers wouldn't see me in the smoke, even when Volus did. So I'll give it D tier for now. On automatons, I'm going C tier. You can kill the random mobs very quickly, and once that's done, War Striders and Factor Striders won't know you exist, to the point you can kill them, and they will not return fire. Granted, you have to kill all the things that know where you are. It just buys you a little bit of time. It's also just pretty fun. On Terminids, it is in the Courage Tears tier, because there's so many chaff messing with you that there's no effectiveness that I found, at least. Dynamite, referred to by intellectuals as Dynamite, has the largest blast radius out of all grenades, dealing 700 damage, medium armor pin. You have 3 options for detonation timer: 5 seconds, 15 seconds, and 60 seconds. It doesn't make any noise until the explosion goes off, so it can be used in a stealth-like manner. You get a total of 4 charges, and truth be told, I couldn't find a single thing it was particularly good at. And I tested it thoroughly. Toss it at bot drop, and you only get maybe 3 kills. Devastators are surviving the blast. Toss it at 1 Devastator betwixt the legs, beneath the jondals, and it survives. You can get a little creative, but not too much. The medium pin and lowest damage hold it back pretty heavily. It can kill a large number of Volus if they're packed in like sardines. That also applies to bugs, but mainly the smaller ones. Hive guards, kind of. I'm saying C tier for every faction. Gas grenade. It emits a decently sized green cloud that inflicts most enemies with caustic. This deals damage over time and blinds them. Kind of. For automatons, it affects everything that's a Hulk and below. Warstrider and up does not get blinded. I think they get damaged, but the damage over time is not too crazy on large enemies. Billy Bobs, however, they die in 1 tick. Devastators take a decent bit of damage. The blind factor, by the way, it essentially makes it so enemies will carry through their recent attack, and then they'll start to miss you. So for bots, they'll shoot maybe once towards you, and then they kind of turn away from you. So generally speaking, if you blind something, you're decent to stand still depending on how far away they are. This is a double-edged sword for bugs. If you gas a charger who's decently far away, he'll veer off left or right and miss you every time. For bugs that are close to you, hunters, warriors, alpha commanders, they will still hit you with their attack they have primed, and sometimes they double attack, meaning you just die. And be wary of the slap chop demon, known as this here alpha commander, who was doing a crazy combo. I'm talking like every half second, just spamming the death button. But in general, though, this thing is freaking godlike for bugs. On Illuminate, it can kill the Volus in 1 tick, and it also just makes them all confused, so they don't really hit you that well. I'd say it's S tier for Illuminate and bugs, and B tier for bots. Arc Grenade. It bounces uncontrollably, and each time it does so, it sends out tendrils of electricity that deal 100 damage with heavy armor penetration. And that's the grenade. You don't have any say in how it hits the target, or even where it bounces to after it does hit it once, and this means it is extremely RNG based. For automatons, it's D tier. Occasionally, you'll one-shot berserkers, but normally it takes 2 or 3. Tanks, if you go for the very back of it, they die fairly quickly, but it takes one grenade, and that's if they don't move at all, and if the grenade doesn't move much either. Hulks tend to survive a blast. Even throwing multiple at them, they just don't care. And it requires perfectly flat ground to even get decent results in the first place. Now, you can kill faction striders if you throw 2 underneath them, and they all mostly land shots. But even then, it depends on which door they go for. You see how it's very particular? For bugs, F tier. The Courage Tears tier. Because you have a lot more enemies, you don't have any usefulness and utility, and even then, it doesn't actually one-shot the small enemies that well. Hunters can survive a blast. Warriors can survive a blast. I think Wilbur's don't. They hold it down for making things seem a bit better than they are. And good luck killing Chargers efficiently. Impalers, Titans, just what are you doing? On the Illuminate, also the Courage Tears tier, because you have Overseers that they can tank 3, 4, 5 tendrils, depending on how they land on the enemy, given their ablative armor. And Boatless are spawning in droves. Meat Bobs are tanking damage. And I feel as though something changed, because at one point in time, I liked these a lot for Harvesters. And I was playing solo, so there was no weird glitches happening. Maybe it was during the status effect glitch, actually, where they're doing a lot more damage than they should. Because I remember having 7 Harvesters and tossing in a handful of grenades and just taking out 4. And it felt awesome. Since then, that doesn't quite happen. Pyrotech has very misleading damage and armor pen stats. You get 6 fireworks that spin and move, showering enemies in a small radius with Thermite level sparks, dealing a ton of damage and shredding through armor. Hulks for sure. It's at least heavy pen, probably around anti-tank as well. This thing leaves behind fire in a larger radius than the Thermites were hitting enemies. So you get the anti-tank aspect and pretty good horde clear. On the bots, I'm going to round up to A tier. It kills a Hulk in 1 Pyrotech, multiple Devastators in 1 throw as well, including Shieldens, Rocket Striders, Scout Striders. If they're clumped up, they die too. It falls off a little bit once you start messing with tanks because it rolls away from the weakest spot, which is the back of the tank. It does decent damage to the side of it too, but it rolls away. It's not going to sit there and Beyblade having the sparks go into the tank. If it did that perfectly, it would shred. If it just stayed in place where you threw it, it would do so much damage. On War Striders, we're ignoring those guys. They don't exist. Just play Retrieve Valuable Assets and Geosurvey, and you will probably never have them. Those are the only 2 missions now on, alright guys? And Faction Striders, it's not particularly good on those dudes. It takes maybe 4 if things go well. I didn't have things go well. It took me a lot more than 4. But I would say for general use, it's pretty freaking solid. And as you go in lower in difficulty, everything's going to be amazing if we haven't made that clear yet. For Illuminate, C tier. They move a lot. You don't have a large radius covered by fire, so even the horde clear aspect, it's there, but it's not great. You know what I mean? It's okay. It's passable, I suppose. And it's not good on Meat Bobs, contrary to popular belief. It's decent on the Harvesters. Those guys actually stand still, like Dents. So it's like, they stay in one spot, so you can take them out decently fast. On the bugs, C tier again. They're mobile. The Chargers are charging. The Impalers don't, but why would you waste a freaking Pyrotech on an Impaler? And even then, it's pretty tough to get value. It has to be beneath their mouth. It has to be beneath the front tentacles on the backside to hit the mouth. And good luck on Battle Titans. Seeker. It's a drone that targets any nearby enemies. If there aren't any, it'll follow you instead for a very short duration of time. This thing has no battery life. I'm talking, it's akin to any smartphone that's been out for more than a year. Forced obsolescence, I tell you. And it does 400 damage, medium armor pen. It will also target the things fairly well after you throw it and then ping them. So you can use that to your advantage, kind of. Don't get your hopes up, though, because the damage output is very lackluster. And it seems to have a pretty tough time targeting things in the sky, such as stingrays. Those fellows are a little too fast. And it takes more than 1 to blow them up, as far as I can tell, if you can even hit him in the first place. It takes 2 to kill Overseers, and you can use it on Voteless, but you only get 4 of them, so maybe not the wisest choice. Potentially not a horrible option if you have a hard time handling the Snitchbot 9000s. Upon rigorous investigation, it does not one-shot the Snitchbot. D tier against Calamari. Sea grenades are kind of fun for automatons on level 7 difficulty with the infinite supply backpack glitch. But aside from that, they don't do a whole lot. The one cool redeeming quality is it can take out gunships. Granted, that can be done with primary weapons, support weapons, a bunch of different stuff. It's not necessary, it's just semi-neat. I'd give it D tier here. For the bugs, it's going straight to F tier. There is nothing it does that I think is very redeeming. Stun grenade. It's a short fuse time that triggers a staggering stun on all the enemies that Urchin can as well. The difference is larger radius, and it applies the stun instantly to chargers, hulks, and war striders, whereas Urchin takes 2 ticks. You also get the same amount of uses. It's going to be 4 for both. I think it's D tier against all factions, because why CC when you can just kill it? High explosive. 800 damage and a heavy armor pin. You would assume the armor pin would carry it, except from what I experienced, it didn't seem to change a whole lot, because you wouldn't really want to use it on hulks. Tanks, it takes 2 if you're on the very back of it, but if that's the case, there's a lot of guns that do the same job that don't waste a grenade slot. And the same goes for pretty much every single faction. The niche use case is maybe using it on mortar emplacement turrets, or potentially bunker turrets if you want to risk holding the grenade to toss it and getting ragdolled and dying to it. Which, by the way, I didn't mention it throughout the video, but that happens a lot with certain grenades. I forgot about that. To me, it's a baseline C tier for all 3 factions. The final grenade. Impact. 400 damage and heavy armor pin. That's pretty low, if we're being honest. The main thing it was used for back in the day for me was skynading tanks, because you didn't have too many great options against them, so hitting them on the heat sink with a grenade from the front was freaking awesome, and there weren't that many tanks either. But these days, you have so many options that these basic grenades are being phased out. The calculations say for Luminate is D tier, and on bugs and bots, C tier. Anyway, that's the grenade tier list, and I hope it helps you in some way. Thank all for watching, and have a good day. This section will showcase if grenades can break spawners, destroy arc spires, how many throws you get, and probably try and categorize if it's anti-tank or not, because some of them are a bit misleading, such as the arc grenade. That thing it's anti-tank, it goes to armor. Anywho, goodbye for real this time. I'm so... What the... Win! Did you toss it back?